Again, my name is Cory Gallaugher. I'm an engagement engineer with the Innovation Solutions Group here at IMAGINiT Technologies. How I typically describe that role is I'm the right tool at the right time. I'm the right project guy. So my background's pretty diverse to have this role. I've been in the AECO industry really since the mid '90s, utilizing Autodesk, Bentley design tools, Archibus and FM systems from a facility standpoint. So my main focus has been helping owners define their architectural and construction delivery standards for really the past 10 years. So what I'm going to talk about today is really, the digital transformation and kind of how IMAGINiT can help you identify and roadmap your path to utilizing all this digital data. So kind of a path to how to get to digital twins. And first, I want to start with kind of introducing who IMAGINiT Technologies is. So IMAGINiT Technologies is a division of RAND Worldwide. And RAND Worldwide has a number of different companies under its umbrella. IMAGINiT is by far the largest. We have a partnership with Autodesk, like a Geosystems, Tura on the facility side, SBS on the utility side. But we also have some sister companies that pertain to this discussion, like our sister company Ascent, which is our publishing arm. So if you need development of documentation around your SOPs and standards for how you're utilizing this data and how the process should flow within your organization, that's one of the things that our Ascent arm can do. It's staffed with, I think, 25 or 30 technical writers that can outline and write all that technical information for you. So this digital transformation in our industry has been happening now for about 5 years, maybe 6 years, a little bit longer than that. But it's starting to come to a head. So one of the things we're taking a leadership role in is helping clients within different industry sectors make this move and understand how to use all this data that they're slammed with. So the main focus of this presentation is to talk to you about the data, what can be done, what some of the benefits are with it, and then how we can help you move down through that path. So I always like to start with a definition. There are multiple definitions of what is a digital twin. My simple definition of it is a digital twin needs a physical copy. You probably heard the term building information model or BIM model out in the world. Well, that's a design term. You can have a model, building information model that's not built yet. That's not a digital twin. This has to have a physical copy with real world implications. So, there are a number of different types of digital twin. It can be infrastructure. It could be, within the building envelope. It could be, undergrounds, tunnels. You can have a digital twin of a tunnel system. So whether it's infrastructure or building facility, you can create a virtual replica of it that you can parse data through. So how does one of these work? Well, once you have that digital copy, you can utilize all the data to make informed decisions. So you can run analysis and tests, parse that data, understand if I make this change, what is the impact going to be before you do it to that physical asset. So the whole benefit of having this is being able to do the type of analytics to make better informed decisions over how you're going to operate that particular asset, whether it be a road or a building or a pipe network somewhere. So, how do we have insightful operations with this? So one of the things that you can do is monitoring the operations of your facility. If you have the data in a modeled environment, and you have it tied to different sensors around the operations of that facility, Then you can parse that data through dashboards to take a real world look at how that building is operating in real time. So you can monitor all those operations from a set of dashboards that are developed with the 3D model or the digital twin as the common data environment for it. You can link it to other systems. And then you can also use that data to investigate, okay, I have a work order to turn off this air handling unit. What areas are going to be impacted within this space when I do that work order? Who do I have to notify that they're going to be hot, right? So you can investigate, if I'm going to work on something or if there's an issue with something, who's going to be impacted. And then it gives you the ability to take proactive action by acting on the data that you're receiving. So think preventive maintenance. You're starting to see some temperature go up on a particular sensor. Okay, we might need to fix this before it goes down. So having all this data in a structured way gives you the ability to do more insightful operations of whatever that facility is. So what's driving this? In my opinion, it's the ability of all the data that we have. We have more data available to us now than any time in history. And we have systems in place to be able to get that data to people that may have not had access to it before. The trick is sometimes that amount of data is overwhelming. So what we want to understand is what data do they actually need and how to use it. So one of the main drivers for doing this is we have all this information. How best can we use it to increase efficiency in operations for our assets and our facilities? So wanted to put together kind of I got this image from a report from GW, and there was one for infrastructure and civil and one for building. I chose the civil example here just because I from an audience perspective. But one of the things that, when you're looking at building these digital twins, it doesn't necessarily just need to be, within the building envelope. It can be all the civil and the infrastructure that's around it. Water, wastewater facilities, undergrounds, geospatial information can be tied to all this. But how do you start with it? You have to start with intelligent data within the built environment. So we're talking about your CAD data, your initial drawing information, drawings, all the documentation for not just what something is, but where is it? And then you're tying all that spatial information through different sensors and your IoT feeds, that type of information to link it to the systems that people use every day. So your work order systems, your record systems, your facilities management, your IWMS systems that you have. So your BIM and CAD data becomes kind of the common data environment where that's the data that was created when the infrastructure or building was built. And you're essentially putting that in a common data environment to communicate and aggregate that out to somebody to analyze information and then act on that information in the systems that they use every day. They don't need to understand Revit or Civil 3D or Open Roads from Bentley in order to understand how to consume the data that was created in those tools. We're parsing it for them through development of a digital twin to hold it and then pushing it into the systems that they use to consume it. So what is IMAGINiT's kind of plan? How can we help you? How do we start with this? Well, we've come up with some structured methodologies, and this is ever evolving. This is fairly a new thing within our industry. So it's going to be an evolving methodology, but how we have it currently is we try to understand your initial use case definitions. What do you want to use this data for? What are the use cases you have for it? Because one of the biggest problems people have is they have too much data. A lot of the projects that I've worked on for universities and healthcare facilities, it's parsing the data down. It's purging things that they don't need. So understanding the data needs and your use cases first are paramount, and those are tied to your business aspects. And then from there, we want to take a look at understanding this business driver and the use cases that you have. What tools need to be put in place in that process to parse and utilize that data and get it into people so they can consume it easily. Once we have that understanding, then we go down through and say, okay, how do we deploy this? What are the integrations between the systems that need to be built? How do we train the staff to maintain the data and to consume it? So we've come up with a marketing term I'm trying to get out there. So it's called DTEP, Digital Twin Execution Plan, kind of a play off of a BIM execution plan. And, the methodology around this, again, goes to the use cases. You see a number of them up there on the screen, whether they're for facilities use cases or, you're a manufacturer that wants to have a digital factory in place. The goal is to create that base database of information. And then how are we going to manage it? What are we going to integrate it with? What dashboards need to be created to parse that data for the individuals that need to use it? And then we also need to do analytics around all those models to make sure that they're maintained in a way that matches the standard data definitions that we built. So, what we're talking about doing, how we can help you guys, is by developing that initial plan and methodology to get you where you want to be. So how do we plan it? There are, whether it's, ISO 19650, based off National CAD standard, we need to work with you to plan, how do we get this information initially? And it starts with your architectural and construction delivery standards from an owner perspective. What are you asking for at handover on your capital projects? Develop the base standard there and start working backwards. If you have, older legacy data, we need to come up with a plan for how are we going to deal with that as well and get that to your digital standard. So it all goes through, this is a slide that's been around for a while, but most of this audience is probably looking at a level 3 here, right? Using this from asset management and predictive maintenance on their facilities. But, we can help get you to that level, but understanding what is your future state you want to be at. If you have to operate, a national lab or something along that lines, you may want to get to a level 5. But maybe you just want to be at a level 4. So we have to help you plan for what's your current state and where do you want to get to. So what are the benefits of doing this from an operations and a maintenance perspective? So the main benefit is operational costs. You can, take a look at your energy usage and sustainability of this, and what are the effects if you make changes, maybe design changes or renovations, and how is that going to impact the energy use of that facility? You're managing your assets and your predictive and preventive maintenance on those underlying assets, or simply just knowing where an asset is, or occupancy data. Did one project in New York City where once they had the digital twin, they assigned rooms for people coming back to the office, so they didn't have to turn on the energy for every floor. They just told, oh, you're coming in the office, go to the 4th floor. No one goes on the 5th floor or 6th floor till the 4th floor is full. That way they're not turning the lights on the other 2 floors because they don't have to. So, and they can evaluate that because they had that digital twin tied with a scheduling system. Excuse me. So there are a lot of little benefits to the operations if you have this data in a way that makes sense for you to consume. There are also challenges. So one of the biggest challenges is really digital skills. Excuse me. So from a standpoint of your staff understanding how to work and maintain a modeled environment for your data, understanding how to maintain the sensors that are tied to building operations, understanding where this data comes from and how to keep it up to date. So that's one of the larger challenges to doing this that I see within our clients is they're used to working in a 2D world. Excuse me. So some of the other ones are financial. If you have all your legacy data is 2D, you need to get it modeled in some way. That's a fairly large cost. Data security is another one. So from a standpoint of, can you store your data in the cloud? Some of the federal government can't. So these are challenges to implementing a digital twin workflow. Sorry. So within how IMAGINiT looks at this, we're going to start with identifying your target solution. So what is that use case that you want to get to? We then work with you to define your process and data standards within your organization. Look at the software and technology tools that are going to be required for that use case. Help you develop the underlying models associated with that data. Excuse me. Validate the underlying models against the standards. And then train your staff how to maintain and work within that targeted solution, and then roll it out to your organization as a whole. So this is basically just a circular definition. And then, after that, as new things come about, we can, or new use cases come about, we can start to circle again. So one of the biggest questions most people get with is, how do we start? Where do we start from? You don't need to eat this whole elephant at once. Okay, what we approach it as is defining your immediate need versus where you want to be. So for example, if your immediate need is you're receiving 3D model data at handover and your staff doesn't know how to consume it, or they don't know how to maintain it. So that would be an immediate need that we could start training your staff around. Okay, you're receiving it in this format. Here's how you work within that format in a modeled environment. And turning an as-built model into what I'm going to say is an as-maintained model. So that can be an immediate need, but your future state and your future use cases are to get to a predictive twin, tying it with a CMMS or an IWMS system. So we can start planning. Okay, we can start here, training up your staff, developing your master and campus facility models, getting them working through defining your data standards. And then from there, then next year, next phase would be tying that with sensor data or linking it specifically with your Maximo or Archibus or your facility system and pushing that data down. So it doesn't need to be taken all as one project. The best way to do this is to take it in individual little phases, starting with one group's immediate need, but keeping your eye on what the future state for the whole organization should be. So with that, I'm going to stop and turn it over for any questions anyone has. And I apologize for coughing in everyone's ear.
No worries, Cory. If you need to get a drink of water too, we've all been there. So Cory, thank you very much for that presentation. The one question that I have is, when we're talking about some of those templates and some of that BIM data, where can I get some of that info or some of those data standards that you had mentioned?
Yeah, so there are a number of different places. So whether you're with the government or with university, higher ed, or healthcare. So, for example, Penn State, Ohio State, Western Michigan have some well-defined standards that they've made public. There's also locations like NIBS, which is right here. National BIM standard, National Institute of Building Sciences is putting out that all these underlying initial templates for BIM execution plans and the data schema is all here for people to go consume and grab. So one of the things that you need to think about is that we can help you with is determining which template makes sense based on the use case that you have for your data. So thank you. That was a good question.
Yeah. Cory, that is absolutely fantastic. Would you be able to take that link and drop it in the chat for the folks that are on this corporate spotlight? They might want to grab that and save that.
Certainly, yeah. So I'll do it.
Yeah. And then Cory, I do have a question here from Lucas, is what are some comprehensive platforms that can be used to create an advanced level digital twin? Apart from Autodesk Tandem, which is simplistic, are there other softwares or would a custom development be required, such as Azure or Unreal Engine or other backend database programs?
So the ones that Tandem's definitely one that's out there. There was another one called Ecodomus, on EMEA. There's a couple other ones that are out in the world. Tandem's the Autodesk tool that I know the most. Some of the other ones are more middleware that essentially just parses data. Yeah, there are other tools other than Tandem that can parse that data in certain ways.
Okay,
and
great.
I always mispronounce Anamia. I have to spell it. But
all right.
that's fine.
Again, if we have any additional questions, if anyone wants to raise their hand through the feature on Zoom, or if you want to drop your question in the chat, we can answer those questions as well. Otherwise, Cory, would you be willing to throw your contact information back up on the screen just so we can have that for the recording?
Certainly.
So if folks want to reach out to you directly, then that way they would be able to do that as well. So not everybody likes to ask their question in a large group form.
Sure. I'll share my screen.
Okay.
And I threw the link to Automate even though I couldn't spell it.
Thank you.
But my contact information isn't even on here. So it's okay.
All right.
I'll type it in here on my slide.
All right. Well, and Cory, while you're doing that, I did have another question that was dropped here into the chat. That is Autodesk Docs for government available?
I believe the Autodesk FedRAMP compliant tools, which is Autodesk Docs and BIM Collaborate Pro, have passed and been authorized. Whether it's available for sale at the immediate moment, I'm not sure, but they do have the authorization.
Okay. All right, that's great. And then the last question, I guess, that I had, Cory, is if you were just starting this process, you had made the comment, take this elephant one bite at a time. What would be, in your opinion, step one of the bite of that elephant?
So typically it's determining your data needs. So I look at it, ask three questions. So, and then the answer from these three questions is going to find where you start. So what data do you need? How are you going to get it? And how are you going to maintain it? If you know one, you start with two. If you know one and two, you start with three. If you don't know one, you got to start with understanding what data you need. So those are three questions that I asked every client I work with. What data do you need? How are you going to get it? And how are you going to maintain it? And then from there, you can start working through the use cases of the data that you have. Does that answer that one?
That
That's
does,
just my
yeah.
opinion, but
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's not a question, but we did have a comment from Mike Harvey just saying, thank you, Cory, for your time and all the information that you've shared on this presentation for the NASPA attendees.
okay.
All right, and thank you,